today, as we dive into the deep issues that affect our world today, and specifically and particularly for this conversation, we'll be talking about climate change. And climate change is not just about rising temperatures, but also global shift that is affecting ecosystems and our economics, and also depicting on how we live our day-to-day lives today. I have very able panelists with me that I'm going to give them a minute or two to introduce themselves. But stay put, and thank you for actually choosing to listen to this conversation for like an hour or so. And without any further ado, I'll not waste any time. I'll start with the one sitting right next to me will be privileged to start us off. So kindly, comrade.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Grateful, Sharon. My name is Ken Henshaw. I'm Nigerian. I come from the Niger Delta region in Nigeria. And the Niger Delta region in Nigeria is a region where all of Nigeria's crude oil is extracted from. And it's also a region that has suffered the impacts of crude oil extraction, which include oil spills, gas flaring, and so on and so forth. Ironically, that region is also the region most impacted by the impacts of climate change, which include sea level rises, flooding, acidification, and now food shortages on account of climate change. In 2024, I was a Beta Fellow, where I spent a whole year investigating the subject matter of disinformation, basically trying to understand how fossil companies lie about the true causes and the true impacts of climate change. And I'm here in your studio today to have a very frank and open conversation on disinformation, what we found out in our 1 year research, but also how our findings in Nigeria interact and speak to the context of Kenya and even Indonesia. So thank you so much for having me.
Karibu sana. 2024 was a very busy year for you.
Yes, it was.
Comrade Orengo, kindly.
Thank you, Sharon, for granting me this opportunity. So my name is Juma Dennis Orengo, or JD Orengo, and I was also privileged to be a Beta Fellow 2024. So during my fellowship work, I did my fellowship in Kenya, combating climate crisis disinformation spread by the political class and the private sector, who are taking advantage deliberately to grab forests and also to use religious disinformation, taking advantage of ignorant citizens to grab their land, invade the forest, and all that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Comrade Katul, finish up.
Thank you. Hello, Sharon. I'm Catur Nusantara. I'm from Indonesia. I live in East Java, part of highly densely populated island in Indonesia. Last year I was also a Berta Fellow for 2024. I was investigate for extractive industry on energy. Was I found it shortly because of then I can conclude that there are similarity between the extractive industry, even fossil fuel change to so-called greener or cleaner energy like geothermal or even the nickel. So I find the similarity on what different operation of these industries. So that's what I found, and I publish it on podcast, documentary, and also photo essay.
Okay, thank you very much. So all of you were Beta Fellows 2024, right?
Yes, we were.
Great. So I'm going to be guiding this conversation, but I'm going to be posing not really a question and answer. I just want us to converse, right? And so Ken, you mentioned climate disinformation.
Yeah.
Maybe distinguish between what is disinformation compared to what is not, what misinformation is. Maybe someone could be misinterpreting these two
concepts.
These two concepts. And as you do that, as you tell us what climate disinformation is, you can as well uncover what you did in the Niger Delta or what you were combating.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharon. So you're right. It's very easy to create a confusion between disinformation and misinformation. So misinformation is when I unintentionally, unknowingly say something to you, give you an information that is not accurate. That's misinformation. I'm misinforming you. So for example, I could tell you that the GDP of Nigeria has grown by 25%, probably because I read it in a magazine somewhere, right? And I believed it. That is misinformation because it hasn't grown by 25%, right? That's misinformation. But disinformation, on the other hand, is when I deliberately cook up a lie and tell you in order to make you believe something that is untrue. That is disinformation. So the difference between misinformation and disinformation lies in how deliberate it is. Misinformation is non-deliberate, giving out of false information, while disinformation is deliberate attempt to misinform somebody, to tell somebody falsehood. And you want to also know what I discovered while I was in Nigeria. Well, my work went really deep, looking at oil companies in Nigeria. So let me give you some background, yeah? Nigeria has been extracting crude oil since 1956, and Nigeria grew from 5,100 barrels of crude oil produced every day to about 2.6 million barrels of crude oil. And in that period from 1956 to now, Nigeria grew and became the 6th largest exporter of crude oil in the world at some point. And the economy, oil revenues kept increasing. But you know what we found out? We found out that as Nigeria increased oil extraction, other things were declining. So when crude oil increased, our agricultural sector declined. Our manufacturing sector declined. Everything declined. So crude oil takes away everything. That's one thing I discovered. And another thing which I discovered is that the way and manner in which multinational oil companies, including Shell, Total Energies, ExxonMobil, and so on and so forth, Eni, and all that, the way in which they carry out crude oil extraction in the Niger Delta is quite different from how they carry it out in other places in the world. They carry it out with reckless abandon, causing massive pollution that poison people in the Niger Delta region. So for example, life expectancy in the Niger Delta is 41 years old, while in other parts of the Niger Delta is 54 years old. So people tend to die more on account of respiratory illnesses, including cancer, in the Niger Delta region. These are the things we found out. And the oil companies consistently lie about the cause of oil spills. So rather than blame their old derelict and faulty equipment, they blame local communities. That's the biggest disinformation. They blame local communities as being responsible for those oil spills. We found that out. But in the context of climate change, the oil companies and the Nigerian government have consistently lied about what is causing the flood in the Niger Delta. So just like you had floods in Kenya last year or so, we also have had massive floods every 2 years since 2012. So the oil companies lie. In my work, I went to communities that have suffered the impact of flooding, and I asked them, what do you think is causing the floods? And they said it's an act of God. Does that ring a bell? Same thing with Kenya.
It does.
Yes, same thing with Kenya. The people say it's an act of God. And when I told them, are you aware that it is the activities of companies like Shell, Total, and ExxonMobil, that it is the crude oil extracted in the Niger Delta that is causing this climate change impact? They told me, no, go to hell, Ken, it's not true. So the people refuse to accept. And that shows you the extent to which climate change disinformation has gone. The oil companies on their website and in their communication with the people do not make it clear and evident that it is crude oil extraction that leads to climate change disaster which the people of the Niger Delta region suffer. To a large extent, that is disinformation. When you hold away the true information and then you tell a lie to the people about what's actually causing the problem. And I discovered multiple layers of this disinformation. And coming to Kenya, right, I have discovered that the dynamics of disinformation are pretty much the same. Okay, so visiting some of the communities in Kenya, I'm hearing that there's a community that was flooded recently, and up to 100 people died. And it just reminds me of Nigeria and the floods we consistently have. And what does that tell me? The people in Kenya believe it's an act of God, just like in Nigeria, right? And the government in Kenya are telling the people that is because they are living on the shorelines of the river.
Yeah.
The same thing they're telling the people in Nigeria. But what they are not telling them in Nigeria is that it is crude oil extraction that is leading to climate change, that is leading to the flood. They're not telling them. The same thing in Kenya. They're not telling them that it is the forest that they are grabbing, cutting the trees, right, that is leading to this climate change response, right? They are not telling them this truth. So we see different layers of disinformation that is not only in the Niger Delta region, but is spanning across the entirety of Africa.
Just a follow-up question. I would want to know, during your discovery journey, how was the government responding? How was it responding to it? Because you've mentioned something about the floods since 2012,
Yeah.
every 2 years. So are there measures that have been put to combat this, or is it just a God's issue?
Yes, okay, so no, the government has not done much to combat the floods, right? The government has got an agency called the National Emergency Management Agency, right? And the job of that agency is to prepare people, indigenous people, for disasters like flood. All they do is announce that the floods are coming, so people should move to higher ground. Please, where is the higher ground?
Sure.
I mean, if they tell the people who live in that community who went in Kenya, please move to higher ground because the floods are coming. Where are they going? The higher ground belongs to people. Okay? Where are they, when you say, oh, people should move from the side of the river, move to where exactly? So the government doesn't go beyond just advising people to move before the floods are coming. That is a very stale and sterile reaction. When the floods do happen, the government does not help people to recover their lives. Kids in the Niger Delta, when the floods come, the floods stay for about 3 to 4 months. All the kids will lose 1 term of schooling, right? Compared to their counterpart elsewhere. The government does not fix education. When the flood comes, it overwhelms the health infrastructure in the communities. The government does not fix health. The government does not provide housing for the people whose houses made of mud and thatch have sunk, who have lost property. There's no microcredit scheme for people who have lost livelihoods. When the floods come, farms get submerged and whole farming season is destroyed. The government does absolutely nothing. And they can hide under the cloud that they didn't cause the floods, that the floods are an act of God. Part of the work I did as a better fellow was to expose that no, this flood is not the same as the flood of Noah. God caused the flood in the Bible. This particular flood is caused by Shell, it's caused by Total Energies, it's caused by ExxonMobil. This is climate change induced flood. Somebody did this. And it is the responsibility of the oil companies who created this mess and their partners in the Nigerian government and elsewhere. It's their responsibility to fix this problem. So part of my climate change disinformation expository was to put blame where blame belongs.
Oh, great. I would want to hear the accountability part from the companies shared. But before that, I'll go to Katur. We've seen or we've heard what Ken has shared about Nigeria, and would maybe think this is an African problem. But again, in Indonesia, you also did some discovery, and I would love maybe for you to engage us with which disinformation did you uncover?
Yeah, I visit 4 places that has different extractive industry. The one is fossil fuel, similar with situation in Nigeria. If you drill oil, in my hometown it's drill gas. So in the beginning they start to having to acquire the land by produce disinformation that the activity is for farming. So people then allow the company to have activity on the area. So the disinformation produced until 2006, the gas leak around a hot month. In only days, it's covered hundreds of hectares of the area. People didn't aware what the situation happened to them because of they have the information that the activities of the gas drilling that has these big consequences or impact. So local people in the early situation try to get the information from the local government and everything, but they also don't know what happened to them. They only gave announcement that okay, the smell like this is because of hydrogen sulfide, and then you need to cover your
mouth,
yeah,
your nose.
with the mask, and don't close your windows, don't close your door during your night activity. So that's the situation that happened in Sidoarjo. And the other area in East Kalimantan that they produce gold, they mentioning that you live side by side with the coal concession. It's not safe for you. Company and government cooperate to develop new villages for the tribe who live in the area. So they produce this information that it's for local people or indigenous people's safety. But what they mentioned to do is that they want to grab the area. I met one leader of this indigenous people and mentioning and show the area that when he left for several years, the company took their land. Yeah, that's the operation of the company, producing something, some disinformation that it's for it's like good thing, right? For people's safety and people security, but then we grab them. In other, in for the nickel industries in Halmahera, they try to grab the land to intimidate to local people using military, using some power like that to intimidate people even on their own plantation, like for cocoa and something else. They ask to buy it in a very low price. That's what happened. In one area in Flores Island, I also found that there's the impact of this geothermal industry, which affected the production of coffee, clove, candle nut, and also for the cocoa. But they refuse to relate this situation with their operation. But the local indigenous people record the situation happened when the industry starts. Never happened. So they try to enlarge the drilling operation there in forest, and they now fighting. We are now local people now fighting with this company because of they also using many other stakeholders like universities, church, military to dealing with the situation. Even they produce the information that there's no relationship between the air's condition with the soil fertilizer with the activities of the industry. So that's what I found.
Oh, okay, great. Just maybe let me stay with you for a minute. When you mentioned about the gases and the government telling people to keep their doors open, their windows open, and to always stay masked, was that the long-term solution that the government offered?
No, it's for the emergency situation only that they because of. After that, there's no periodic monitoring that has been done by the government or even of the industry, and we really don't know that that time what kind of the pollution that spread everywhere to the area. But then later we found that there's hydrogen sulfide, there's polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon that always on the fossil industry like oil and also gas. And we found so many heavy metals also split everywhere in the water. Even their assistant from the United Nations that time, but government or even the industry neglect that there are heavy metals on it, and they could not even spill it directly to the environment, river, ocean, and even on the soil. So they didn't care about our local people's safety. No.
So much recklessness, and to think that these people that we put into power are the ones that should actually be protecting us, right? Because I believe you also pay taxes in your country.
Yes, sure.
Of course.
But they don't know. Maybe they don't know also how to do the monitoring itself because of sometimes this industry is highly like become a national policy, and the local government sometimes don't know to deal with this situation.
A lot of similarities we see here compared to to Kenya. Maybe Kenya is even worse. So JD, maybe tell us what you uncovered, discovered, and how your 2024 was as a better fellow.
I thank you so much. I was combating climate crisis disinformation spread by the religious and the political class and the private sector. So 2024 was a very interesting year for the country, being that the people I was combating were plainly bringing me the evidence without even going to dig in and to combat them, like literally dig in, searching for the evidence. So as I was just laying the framework or the groundwork for my work, the state decided to employ intercessors to be praying for the country, and they were 100 in number. So they were employed on a full-time basis to always intercede for the country, to pray for the rains, the presidency, and any other thing.
Yeah.
And we thought it was a joke. Then come March, the state used about 30 million Kenya shillings to bring a televangelist to pray for the country so that rains would fall.
Yeah.
And when we said that is misuse of taxpayers' money when the country is really scoring low on social economic rights. But the president said that most of us are anti-Christ, we are anti-religious. So we don't understand because he was put in that position by God, and so he has to honor God. But it rained, and the president took glory, and that those who mocked us now, who is laughing now. So we thought he was joking or he was high on something, but the jokes escalated even a little further. So the presidency, it rained, and even before the rains came, an organization which is very religious and connected to one wife of the big man, called Child Fund International, went and grabbed almost 1,000 acres inside Karura Forest, and they had a genuine title deed from the Ministry of Lands, authorized by Ministry of Environment. So I asked myself and plus my other colleagues I was working with, that how can someone get allocated title deed inside an indigenous forest that has existed ever since this country existed. So the only solution or answer we came out with is a poor person cannot be behind child fund.
Definitely.
That needs someone who is highly politically connected, someone who is well resourced, and all that. So when we began questioning child fund, they told us they are creating a child space center for children of Kibera. Kibera and Ololua is a lot of kilometers apart. They don't want children to get involved in drug abuse, routine pregnancies, or all that. So they want to create safe child center in Ololua forest, inside the forest, for children. So asking ourselves, if you destroy the forest, so do you able to see the contradiction?
Yeah.
And things were happening so fast that in less than a week there, the title deed, they are already creating forest demarcations using, they are building walls and all that. So we made a lot of noise with other activists, and we were able to bring down the wall, and we were able to evict them. Assuming that things had cooled off, the politics of affordable housing came in place, and President decided to award these Chinese companies, SH Young, the tenders of affordable housing. And if you are closely checking where the affordable houses are, those are places with so many indigenous trees, you see. So if you go to a place like Maragoli Hills, Maragoli Forest, if you go